And thank you for spending your lunch hour with us. I am Ahmad Ali, and I am the Program and Membership Manager at the Greater Wilkes-Barre Chamber of Commerce. Today, I'd like to welcome you to our Wednesday Wisdom session. Our Wednesday Wisdom is a bi-weekly webinar focused on delivering relevant information to support business connectivity and sustainability in our region. Each session will feature local business and subject matter experts and the opportunity for a Q&A. So before I go into details for today's event, I just want to go over some quick housekeeping items. All attendees will remain in listen-only mode. To be respectful of everyone's time, we have a lot of time at the end for a Q&A, so feel free to ask any questions during the presentation by submitting them in the Q&A section or the chat box here on Zoom. And this event is also being live streamed on Facebook. For anyone watching on Facebook, please submit your questions in the comment section. We will be keeping an eye on that to ask your questions to our presenter here today. A recording of the session will also be available on Facebook and YouTube for you to get access to this content at any time you have the ability to do so. So let's get started. This Wednesday Wisdom will be part one of our two-part Wednesday Wisdom series focused on hospitality industry. Today's topic will focus specifically on navigating the restaurant industry through the COVID-19 pandemic. Our presenter today is from Metz Culinary Management, which was established in 1994 by entrepreneur John C. Metz as a custom dining management service company with a guest-first philosophy, serving a variety of market segments, including healthcare, corporate dining, higher education, and independent and public school dining. We're excited to have with us today the Vice President of Restaurant Operations at Metz Culinary Management, Rick Sell. Rick has been working in the restaurant industry since he was 15 years old. And he began his career as a dishwasher at Howard Johnson's restaurant, which he says he's not sure if it's still around or not. He has 30 years of restaurant experience, which spans from all functions of operations, from hourly positions through management and leadership roles. He joined Metz Culinary Management in 2014, and he now oversees both franchise and company-owned brands for Metz, including TGI Fridays, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, Chick-fil-A, Dunkin' Donuts, and Lucky's Craft Food and Drink. A lot which you are all familiar with and used to. When Rick is not working, he loves to hike, mountain bike, and actually has a great hike planned this weekend for Rick's Glen, which he is from Vermont, but also loves our natural area that we have here to offer for him and his family. He has a wife, an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old, and our area is very awesome for them to explore whenever they do have the time. So now I'll just turn it over to Rick.
Well, thank you, Ahmad. Appreciate that warm welcome, and it sure is a special treat to be able to live, work, and play in our great area. And thanks for the opportunity today to talk with you all about kind of how our company has been navigating our restaurants through the pandemic. So without further ado, we'll jump in here. Again, my name is Rick Sell. I'm the Vice President of Operations for Metz Culinary Management, located here in Dallas, Pennsylvania. It's our corporate headquarters, and just proud to be located here in Northeast Pennsylvania. As many of you may be aware, we are a family-owned, family-driven organization. We currently operate 275 different pieces of business, kind of scattered up and down the East Coast. So as far north as Maine, all the way down to Florida, and as far west as Indiana or Tennessee, depending on how you're looking at the map there. We have 41 different restaurant locations, and we've been blessed with recognition as one of the top 50 contract management companies in the organization, and also proud to employ over 7,000 employees and manage more than 1,500. So a footprint that allows us, to support our team, provide wonderful opportunities. And again, this map just kind of shows you where our businesses are located. Again, very proud of the fact that the company was, born and raised here, so to speak, in Northeast Pennsylvania, with our main support center located in Dallas. We also have offices in Georgia, in Florida as well. And of course, at Metz, we consider every employee to be part of our family. And today, the organization is led by Jeff Metz, who is our president and CEO. The brands that we represent are probably familiar to many of you here locally. We proudly represent TGI Fridays, going into our 26th year as a franchisee with restaurants located in both Pennsylvania and New Jersey. We also own and operate Ruth's Chris Steakhouse at Mohegan Sun. We have a handful of Chick-fil-A's that are in Mohegan Sun in Connecticut, Misericordia University here locally, as well as Florida A&M University, Dunkin' Donuts. And then we have a couple of our own internally developed brands. We internally developed Lucky's Craft Food and Drink. We also have another brand of ours, Marlowe's Tavern, which was launched in Atlanta, Georgia, and has been steadily growing in the Southeast. So again, just appreciate the opportunity to tell our story here. But really the main topic of discussion today, the thing that's been on everyone's mind, has really been the pandemic and COVID-19 and really understanding its impact. You know, the restaurant industry, more than any other industry, has suffered the most significant sales and job losses since the COVID-19 outbreak began. Certainly not downplaying the impact to really all walks of life and all industries, but in particular, it's had a devastating impact on those of us in the food and beverage and restaurant industry. There's been more than 8 million restaurant employees that have either been laid off or furloughed since the beginning of the coronavirus outbreak, and 2 out of 3 restaurant employees have lost their jobs. The industry will sustain $240 billion in losses estimated by the end of 2020, according to the National Restaurant Association. And in particular, the restaurant and food service industry will lose more than $80 billion in sales by the end of April, which actually came to fruition. That includes the $30 billion loss in March and a $50 billion loss in April. And surveys that the National Restaurant Association has done said that 61% of operators say that the existing federal relief won't prevent more restaurant layoffs. And I know that Congress is working hard on another package that we hope will go out in the next week or two that will be critical for many businesses to be able to survive. They anticipate, that more than 4 in 10 restaurants are going to be closed. Just wanted to give you a little bit of a snapshot in terms of kind of total eating and drinking place sales. Again, these are statistics that we've received from the National Restaurant Association, but the total shortfall in restaurant and food service sales reached an estimated $145 billion during the first 4 months of the pandemic. Restaurant sales rose for the second consecutive month in June. So that has been a very, very encouraging trend that we've not only seen nationally, but certainly in Pennsylvania, and more specifically here in Northeast Pennsylvania. So that's been good news for all of us as local economies continue to reopen and ease restrictions on commerce. We all know that we continue to have week-to-week challenges as governors and ours have taken action that they believe is in the best interest of our citizens, protecting their safety and health. Recently we went from 50% restaurant occupancy to 25% and closed all bars in the state. So, while it's great to see the sales kind of come back in May and June, we continue in July to be challenged with the operating environment. Again, we'll talk a little bit today about what those challenges are kind of how our company has been navigating through that. So while the expanded dining opportunities were welcomed by both consumers and operators, overall spending in restaurants remained well below normal levels. And again, on this graph, you can simply see that. Very consistent sales going back to July of last year, really through February. And then right around St. Patrick's Day was when the lockdown started. And then we can start to see the significant impact there in March and, of course, April, where we bottomed out. Eating and drinking places registered sales of $47.4 billion on a seasonally adjusted basis in June. Again, this is according to the preliminary data from the U.S. Census Bureau, and that represented the second consecutive monthly sales gain, again after falling to a low of $30 billion, as I mentioned, in April. And then June represented the highest monthly sales volume that we've seen since the beginning of the pandemic lockdowns in March, but still remain roughly $18 billion down from the pre-coronavirus sales levels that again were posted in January and February. This next slide here talks about eating and drinking place employment. So the impressive 2-month employment bounce only marks the beginning of what we all expect to be a long climb back to pre-coronavirus staffing. The restaurant industry expanded payrolls for the second consecutive month in June, again, as those local economies across the country continued the gradual process of reopening. The healthy June increase that you see here followed a nearly identical gain in May, and that represented a significant chunk of the 7.5 million net jobs added to the overall economy during the last 2 months. However, the nearly 3 million jobs that were added to the payroll there in May and June didn't even represent half of the total jobs lost at the depth of the coronavirus lockdown. So to be sure, while a 2-month employment bounce of 3 million jobs is impressive, it only marks the beginning of a long road to recovery for the restaurant industry. And again, as I mentioned earlier, I just want to reiterate, restaurants were hit harder than any other industry during the pandemic. And we still have the longest climb back to those pre-coronavirus levels. And then on the bottom of that slide, you'll see some restaurant employment by segment. I thought this would be helpful information to look at. You can see that the impact there between full service, the first bar there shows employment change between February and April, and then the red shows April and May. Statistics for employment lagged 1 month behind, which is why you don't see June. But again, you can see not only the job loss in full service, but the bounce back in full service. And then you have the other segments there, quick service, fast casual, food service contractors, caterers, etc. And the initial impact of this pandemic was most significant in the Northeast, with several Northeast states losing more than 60% of their restaurant jobs. Job losses also varied, as I mentioned there, significantly by industry segment, and then obviously so too will the recovery period. Again, more than 3.6 million food service restaurant jobs were lost between February and April, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And again, the segment added back nearly 1 million jobs in May. You'll see the limited service that I made reference to, the quick service. They've fared comparatively better during the lockdowns. Most of those operations were already well equipped to handle off-premise traffic. Most notably having a drive-through has really been helpful for quick service, as that was really the only option for many, many weeks following the initial lockdown. And then staffing levels at quick service and fast casual establishments declined by more than 977,000 between February and April, with 364,000 of those jobs returning in May. So I thought it would be helpful to just share a little bit of the statistics relative to what we've seen, from a sales volume and from an employment standpoint. This next slide is a new finance term that our team has been using lately. The new acronym that's really come into our conversations, EBITDAC, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, and coronavirus. We know the accountants that have had a very challenging time over the last 19 weeks, really, trying to understand the financial impact and then how to preserve profitability. And really, as most operators have discussed, including our own company, is how do we simply make it to the backside of the pandemic? So let's next talk about how we formulated our plan. We began with providing our teams out in the field restaurant reopening guidance. So when the lockdown occurred, kind of there in that third week of March, and it became quite obvious to us the circumstances that we were facing, we had to formulate a plan and put that guidance out into the field. And there were 4 components on the initial work. The first was about maintaining food safety. Number 2 was cleaning and sanitizing. Number 3 was the employee health and hygiene. And then lastly, social distancing and what that meant in each of our different businesses. It was also important that we communicated clearly with our team and acknowledged the change. One of the things as we look back now that we felt was incredibly important is to communicate frequently and honestly with a lot of transparency for our team members and really understanding what the team was going through, because it really impacted our operations, not only at the restaurant level, but in our field support teams and certainly in our support center as well. So this notion of acknowledging change became very, very important. COVID-19 has created unprecedented losses and unprecedented challenges. And our Fridays team has continued serving guests. So we made a decision in the beginning to not close any of our businesses. We felt it was important to remain open for our communities, for our guests, our vendor partners, and most importantly, for our team members. We also knew that guests would expect new procedures around team member and guest safety, and we're adjusting to those new patterns in consumer behavior. And then a new normal moving forward. Our priority has always been safe service first and really earning the trust of our community. We know that guests are nervous, scared, skeptical about what businesses are doing to protect them and our team. And it's been real important that we've tried to earn and maintain that trust. And a message that we've used with our team is that we're all in the same storm, but we may be in different boats. So even here in our company, we're all in different boats, whether we're in more of a quick serve business versus full serve versus fine dining, and then over into on-site management, whether it be service provided in hospitals or K through 12, higher education. So just understanding that we're all in that same storm, but have different circumstances has been really helpful for everybody trying to think about how they're going to navigate through. And then we established what we call our commitment to each other. Again, from the beginning, it has always been about the health and safety of our guests and our team members being the first priority. We're committed to ensuring that we're equipped to successfully reopen our restaurants while strengthening the trust and confidence our guests and team members have in us. So for us, when we talk about reopening, we never truly closed. We went into a full takeout to go delivery only model, and then reopening for us became, inside dining, and now we've stepped that back a little bit. We know many restaurants and many businesses out there simply were closed for a period of time and then had to reopen. In some cases, unfortunately, those businesses have yet to reopen. And we continue to follow the guidance provided from the Centers for Disease Control and state and local officials to inform our decisions. We also crafted some training material and some guidance for our team around protecting the dining experience. That started with ensuring our team member wellness, maintaining sparkling, clean restaurants, practicing social distancing, not only our team members while on duty and on the job, ensuring our guest safety, but we also had to ensure that our guests were practicing those social distancing guidelines, wearing our personal protective equipment, and then ongoing team member training and validation. We put out a temporary operational requirements for all of our team members. It started with a health screening for all team members before working. So in our company, we require in the morning or afternoon, evening, when folks come to work, that they check in with a manager and they go through a temperature screening process. Any team member who's above 100.4 goes home for the day and returns to work when they're symptom-free. And we've supported our team members, those that have been faced with situations where they're unable to work, unable to earn income, but have to go home to be able to protect the safety and wellness of our guests and our team members. Frequent hand washing, at least every 30 minutes, and then clean and disinfecting all high-touch equipment and surfaces within our operations. Ensuring all team members are wearing gloves and all team members wearing face protection. All team members must wash their uniforms daily. And again, making sure that we're maintaining social distance from our guests. If a team does have to come into that 6-foot area, to whether it's taking payment or meal delivery, we step back as soon as possible to make sure that we're maintaining that distance with our guests. When we think about our people are our most important asset that we have in our organization. And as we've navigated the past 19 weeks, what we've learned is that really understanding what our team members are going through, exhibiting empathy, patience, understanding, flexibility have all become very, very important. Everyone is thinking about this differently. Some are saying, boss, tell me where to be and what to do, and I'm available. And other people have said, I'm just not comfortable working right now. So being able to have the flexibility to support our team, we think has been real important, and bringing back those that are comfortable to work and those that are not, remaining out of work until they feel more comfortable about it. So as we talk about the right people, we do believe that success in our restaurants begins with the quality of our team. The right people bring our restaurants to life and execute all of the other operational absolutes that we have in our restaurants. And as we went through these different phases of the pandemic, starting at the end of March, it really started with just simply keeping in touch with people, letting them know what's going on at the restaurant, asking them about how they're doing, how their health and safety of their family and friends. And then slowly we began to invite folks back to work as volumes increased, as dining rooms began to reopen. We welcomed team members back, and that process included an orientation and specific kind of COVID-19 pandemic training as team members return to work. And again, our whole goal there with keeping in touch was to reach out to any of our furloughed staff that we hope to bring back and do that outreach at least once per week. You'll see a couple shots there of a few of our team members as we transitioned, our business to takeout delivery only. We've also had very good success with our third-party delivery partners that you see listed there: Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Grubhub. This next slide here is just an example of some contactless operational stuff that we've done. You can actually, scan that with your phone camera, and it should take you to our menu. But, one of the things we knew is that we had to reduce the guest touch points within our restaurants. And so many businesses and many restaurants have employed this QR code technique, just one in a long list of things that we've done to try to make our restaurants more safe for our team and our guests. And as I mentioned, just transforming our business has been really quite frankly amazing to watch over the past 9 weeks as our company, our industry, and our fellow restaurateurs have transformed the way they've done business. What you see in these pictures are literally outside dining areas that we had to create on sidewalks and in parking lots. In the bottom left there, you'll see the installation of plexiglass and partitions that we've put in all of our restaurants, social distancing stickers there to help our guests queue up, all things that our teams have done to be able to ensure that we can remain open and serve in a safe manner. This next slide just shows a couple more shots of some things that we've done in some of our businesses. These particular pictures show what's known as a bar block. So it's a plexiglass divider that allows you to partition your bars. Before bars were closed, many of you may know, that too had to follow the social distancing guidelines or partitioning. So we elected to add partitioning to our bars, which will allow guests to enjoy a bar experience, be able to sit next to another guest as long as they had that partition in between, or of course 6-foot distance. And in the bottom left, you can see an example of some plexiglass that was installed above that booth. A little hard to see there, but you can probably make out the outline of the partition there. And then hand sanitizer stations located throughout all of our dining rooms. We didn't want a guest to go more than 10 feet without having the opportunity to be able to sanitize their hands, certainly, when going to and from the restrooms or coming in and out of the businesses and restaurants themselves. Another tactic that we used in our restaurants is we installed REMI Halo air purification systems. So on the top there, you can see the unit. They run about $500, about another $400 for installation. And they're a small unit that insert quite easily into most HVAC systems. On the bottom there, you'll see an illustration. It attaches to the supply side and with UV light and filters purifies 99% of the air, including airborne viruses. COVID's too new to have a certification specifically for REMI, but REMI has been certified for SARS and other viruses that we've faced in years past. So again, we felt it was a necessary investment and step that we should take for our team members and our guests. We also installed Nemco foot door openers, which allows you to open doors to restrooms and such and not have to grab handles. And then this last slide here just kind of shows what our business snapshot looks like. So this is specific to our company. And I thought it would be helpful. You know, earlier I shared more broad data coming from National Restaurant Association, but this is what our year-over-year comp growth and decline look like. So we can see there back in the beginning of March, the business was running flat to slightly up versus prior year. And then you can see that second week of March, and then the third week there, down 33.1. And then really what we're considering to be the first full week of lockdown in the bottom of the comp growth chart, we saw 82% of our business disappear. I think, again, for anyone on the webinar today that runs, owns, or operates businesses, you all have probably experienced something similar to this, which has been, you know, nothing short of devastating to our industry. And then you can see kind of this long, slow climb coming back out. And then you can see there at the end of May, beginning of June, really starting to see some significant comp, year-over-year comp growth as counties in Pennsylvania began to reopen, the benefit obviously being you know, more guests and more sales. And we've gotten to a point now where we've come very, very close to comping positive versus prior year. A couple weeks ago, down 8.7, followed by that 19.2, and then negative 16.2. So all good news, so to speak, but still represents, you know, a much, you know, longer way forward. And so what is our path forward? Our path forward is to continue to focus on the health and the safety of our team and our guests. We continue to use the CDC recommendations as guidelines. And it's also about anticipating and adapting to state and local mandates. You know, this last go around was hard to anticipate a step back from 50% to 25%, but we are anticipating potentially seeing that move back up to 50%, perhaps as early as August 11th. So it's important for our teams to try to anticipate what that may look like so that we can get out ahead of it in terms of ordering more supplies and food and beverage, and certainly you know, bringing back even more of our team, or in some cases actually hiring additional team members to meet that new business growth. And then lastly, you know, remain optimistic and positive. These are very, very difficult circumstances. And, you know, we believe by remaining optimistic and positive, you know, that kind of fuels the energy and engagement of our team and will help us see the backside of the situation. So I know I covered a lot of ground there, but I thought it would be helpful to hear from a local organization a little bit about our story, some of the impact that it's had on our organization. And so, Ahmad, with that, I'd be happy to kind of open it up to any questions and answers that anybody, or questions rather, that anybody may have, and hopefully I can provide those answers.
Thank you, Rick. That was truly amazing. You covered a lot. I especially love that you guys are focusing on your commitment to each other and understanding your team on that level and having that empathy. I feel like, you know, there's one part of it where your service to the customer is definitely necessary, but then ensuring that your team is safe and are able to show up for work there is definitely something as an employer could do to benefit their team. And the QR code thing is super, super smart. Just the ability to pull up the menu on your phone. It would save on having that high touch menu there where it passes everyone, they can see it, but also save on printing for those that are printing out menus and then tossing them after each use, whereas the menu can just be on their phones at the touch of a button. That's very smart. I do have a few questions here. So what do you have anticipate sales comps and operating environments to look like as we head into the fall and early next year? I know there's that fear of a second wave in the fall, and then does this move into 2021? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you for that question. You know, while we're optimistic, we also are realistic. We are not anticipating a return to normal anytime soon. So, you know, in our last planning session, we really felt like certainly at minimum through the end of this year, but realistically kind of through the winter, and not until next spring do we anticipate that we may see more of a return to normal. You know, everyone's using that new normal phrase, but we do believe at some point we will get back to more normal activity. Obviously, we're all reading and hearing about, you know, vaccines and going into trial, and a lot of optimism that there may be something by the end of the year. But, you know, for us, we've got to be cautious and careful with our planning and our fiscal planning. And we anticipate that we're going to be operating in this reduced capacity environment, you know, for quite some time. One of the things that's really going to challenge us in particular, all of us in this business, is when we lose the ability to have our patios. You know, there's a lot of great seats available in our community for sure, in wonderful patios and parking lots and tents that have been converted. You know, when the cold weather sets in October and November, most of that outside seating capacity is going to go away. That's why we feel it's critical for the governor to make that decision to at least move inside dining back to 50%. And we're optimistic that sometime in the fall, maybe we'll see it get back to 75%. But again, if we do face a second wave, that's going to be very, very challenging to try to convince, you know, our leadership, because again, at the end of the day, they're trying to make decisions that they believe are in the best interest and safety of our citizens.
Thank you for that. And you know, we do live in a climate, in a region where come October, November, it will get cold, and that's something all restaurants have to look out for, especially those that are transitioning and they'd go ahead and create outdoor dining with not having it prior to that. Another question, you did mention success having a third-party delivery option earlier. Is it a good option for most restaurants to add on to their service, and is it costly to participate?
Well, thank you for that question. You know, yeah, there's been a lot of debate, a lot of chatter over the last, you know, I'd say 1 to 2 years about third-party delivery. You know, whether you're for it or against it, it's here. And, you know, it can be very, very expensive for restaurant companies. You know, there's commissions for those third-party deliveries that can be as much as 30%. I know that there's a lot of legislation that's moving across the country, you know, states and local municipalities, cities, trying to cap those percentage rates on third-party delivery. What I would tell you is that it's been absolutely critical to our survival, quite frankly, over the past 19 months. We've seen a tremendous amount of our sales volume coming through third-party delivery. So while the commissions on those are higher, and we'd rather not give that up, without it, we just simply would not have the top-line sales performance. The other thing that I, you know, can suggest to folks that are thinking about it is that, you know, you can increase your menu pricing specifically for delivery, third-party delivery. And we've chosen to do that in some of our businesses, which helps to at least offset or minimize some of the impact that those higher commission percentages, you know, can do to challenge, you know, profitability and the return on investment. But I absolutely believe that it's a convenience that the guest wants, and you know, allows your restaurant to have another critical kind of revenue channel during this tough time.
Thank you. You mentioned profitability in that last answer to that question. So as a restaurant owner, how could I, not saying I'm a restaurant owner, but if as a restaurant owner, how can they improve profitability with such lower sales?
That's a great question. You know, the ability to do it is out there. What we've noticed, and many of our peers and our competitors have done as well, is, you know, operations have been simplified significantly since the start of the pandemic. And I think in the beginning, it simply just was out of necessity. We just had less people available to work. You know, our operations are complicated, and how do we still stay open, you know, serve our community and our guests, but not have as much support and labor in order to do that. And so, you know, we significantly reduced our menus, and along with that menu reduction, really taking a close look at those menu items that remained and making sure that they were either the guest favorite items or items that had real strong margins. And what we've actually seen over the last 19 weeks is that our cost of goods sold is actually down nearly 4% from pre-pandemic levels. So that extra 4% has really been critical for us to help us offset the 65% total sales loss over that 19 weeks. Again, if you remember that chart, it was on the low side of 82. We climbed all the way back to negative 88. But if you look at that 19-week average, sales are down around 65%. So the profitability, we've been able to protect it, so to speak, through our cost of goods sold. And then we're also finding that this business model at times is just more efficient with takeout and to go. So because you don't have as big of a menu, you can have less people on, and then just by design, at least in the beginning when you didn't need bartenders and in-restaurant staff, it was actually a quite efficient business model. As dining rooms have reopened, we've had to add back, you know, that labor into the restaurants, but you know, when you kind of pull it all together, profitability can be protected. And then, you know, as I'm sure people have experienced, you know, your vendor partners are there to support you, your landlords, your banks, everybody's going through a similar situation. And so I think it's really important to just simply ask, you know, ask your vendor partners, ask your banks, ask your landlords for any sort of relief or support that they can provide. And then, you know, lastly, just looking at all of the other kind of services that you have. So, you know, if you would typically have 2 or 3 times per week trash pickup, you know, maybe it's once per week or once every week. Again, at lower volumes, you probably have a lower frequency for some of those services that we typically have in the restaurants.
Thank you, Rick. It seems like you guys really took a deep dive and look at every aspect of how you can, you know, increase your profitability over this time with given the lower sales there. So thank you for that answer. I have one more question here, kind of a two-parter. So how are you getting team members excited to return to work who are concerned for their safety or concerned about catching the COVID-19 virus? And also, is there a certain daily health procedure for the screening of those team members?
Thank you. You know, as I mentioned earlier, you know, it just starts with the dialogue and communication, and just it's one team member at a time, and you know, no two conversations are alike. How you doing? How have you been? How's your family? Is everybody healthy and safe? And then, you know, hey, we're going to be adding more shifts on. Are you interested potentially in returning to work? And then, you know, from there, navigate appropriately. You know, if it's a yes, you know, we can't wait to have you back. As our sales have grown, we've naturally had the need to add back, you know, additional staff. You know, in other conversations, it's, you know, I haven't been well, I haven't been healthy, and I don't feel comfortable returning to work. And then at that point, just saying we completely understand how you're feeling and what you're going through, and just making our business available to them when they're ready to return. Excuse me. So, you know, that's always kind of been our approach, you know, kind of a team first mentality that, you know, Mr. Metz instilled in all of us many years back. But we feel that, you know, again, our team is our most important asset. So that's how we've tried to get people, you know, excited and engaged. And then, you know, to just make sure they understand what we're doing to help keep them safe. You know, when they understand about air filtration and sanitation stations and, you know, foot door openers, and, you know, we installed wireless credit card devices in our restaurants so that we can do pay at the table. As a guest, your credit card doesn't have to leave your hand. You dip your own credit card, and you don't have to worry about that, you know, being touched by anyone else. So, you know, we've found that this message of safe, clean, sanitary is just as important for our team members as it is for our guests. So that's also gone a long way in instilling their confidence in coming back into the restaurant. And then as far as the second question there about team member wellness, I did mention that briefly in the beginning of the presentation, but we do a daily health screening of our team members. You know, I'd encourage you to, you know, consult with your HR team, your counsel, to make sure that you're handling that appropriately. There are certain things you can and can't do. Things become medical records, etc. But, you know, essentially, when a team member comes into work, we're going to take their temperature, and if they're running hot, so to speak, then we'll let them go home and return to work when they feel better. I mean, frankly, that's no different than it always was, but certainly is top of mind now, with that being a pretty important symptom potentially for COVID-19. And then just asking a few health and wellness questions. There's been a lot of concern about where folks are traveling and are they coming back from states where there's quarantine requirements. So, you know, we try not to make these questions too intrusive, you know, respecting privacy and confidentiality, but also just making sure that those folks who are coming into work are able to do so and keep the rest of the team healthy and keep our guests healthy. And then again, just 100%, you know, standard adherence to masks while working, while on duty by all of our team members. And that's a tall order for a dishwasher, for a line cook, even for a server, you know, trying to wait on tables outside in 90 degrees with a mask on. But we believe that's one of the most important things that we can do to protect others and to protect ourselves.
Thank you, Rick. I mean, this entire session has been truly enlightening. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us here today on such an important topic. And I believe a lot of our local restaurants and a lot of our the members and businesses in the hospitality industry will get a lot of information out of this. So I thank you once again for joining us here today. Well, I think with that being said, in the essence of time here, I want to thank you all for tuning into today's Wednesday Wisdom session. We will have this recorded, and it will be uploaded on our Facebook page, on our YouTube pages for you to access in the future. Part 2 of our hospitality focused Wednesday Wisdom will be at noon on August 12th, and we'll focus on our catering side of the hospitality industry. I want to encourage you all to check out our past Wednesday Wisdoms and share the information with anyone that could benefit from that content. We do have playlists listed on our Facebook and our YouTube pages. And if you have a topic that you would like for us to cover, please let us know in the comment or at events@wilkes-berry.org. Thank you again. And if you haven't done so already, I just want to quickly remind you to sign up for our newsletter, which comes out every Wednesday, to stay up to date with all of our upcoming events and everything that's going on in the community. We hope you all continue to be safe and stay well. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you.